It's time for Mac Geek Gab, and listener Dustin brings us our quick tip of the week with printing a website in reader mode. He says, this is one of my favorite tricks in Safari, to view a website in reader mode and then printing it to a PDF. This gets rid of all the junk and prints out the page as you see it in reader mode. More tips like this, plus your questions answered today on Mac Geek Gab number 1045 for Monday, July 8th, 2024.
Greetings, folks, and welcome to Mac Geek Gab, the show where you send in quick tips like that. You send in questions, which hopefully we answer, or at least we discuss. You send in cool stuff found, which we share so that we can all learn at least 5 new things every single time we get together. Our sponsor for this episode is BBEdit from barebones.com, my text editor of choice. It's open on my Mac right now. I looked and confirmed it's always open on my Mac. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. For now, here in Durham, New Hampshire, I'm Dave Hamilton.
And here in South Dakota, I'm Adam Christensen.
And Pilot Pete is muted wherever in the world he is.
Of course I am. And here in New Hampshire is Pilot Pete. You know, I've just wanted to see if I could shout out the window loud enough for everybody to hear me this morning. So
my microphone's pretty directional, Pete. So I don't know if it would pick you up. It's kind of aiming off axis to where your house is. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. My voice is not that loud, apparently. So
you got it. You're a loudmouth. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. However, that doesn't mean what we think it means.
Yeah, right. There you go. Oh, man.
Yep.
Oh, how about I take us to another quick tip then?
Yeah, let's rock and roll. Let's do this.
So Dom writes in, he says, pro tip, if you turn off iCloud on your Mac and turn it back on, and there are times, especially in troubleshooting, you need to do that. If you turn it off and turn it back on, you have to turn on iCloud photos separately in the app. Ask me how I know, he says. Thank you, Dom.
When this tip came in, I was like, oh, that explains it. Because I realized recently on one of my Macs that it was turned off in Photos. I'm like, what? Like, how did this happen?
Who the heck turned off my photos?
Who did that? Yeah, who did this? And it turns out it was me. Yeah.
Oh, I know that guy.
But, like, that's super important to know.
Yes, it is. And it would be nice if maybe there was a, you know, like a little tip window or something from Apple that said, hey, by the way.
Yeah. Hey, dum-dum. Yeah. Well, but like, it's not dum-dum either. Like, you turn iCloud off, it turns off everything. You turn it back on, and
it doesn't turn on everything.
Some of the things come back on.
That's just wrong.
Are we sure? And the only reason I ask is because remember a few weeks back when I said for my developer thing, I have this developer iCloud account that I have to log in and log out of like constantly.
Sure.
And so I'm switching back and forth between that and my own personal account. And at least on my work computer, every time I relog into my account, and I'm assuming this is because I have this setting set up on other machines, it turns everything back on my work Mac, which I don't want. So iCloud Documents, iCloud Photo Library, it's all on. And I scramble to turn it off. And I even have to do the thing with Documents where it says, do you want to remove the documents from this Mac? Yes, I absolutely do. Because I don't want these documents on this Mac because that's my personal stuff.
It's your personal data.
Work machine. So I don't know. I don't know what the triggers are or what the keys are between one and the other.
But Photos is one of the things that sort of automatically re-enables
itself. It automatically comes on, and I don't want my personal photos on my work Mac either, so I kick that off as well.
Yeah, and KiwiGram in the chat.
And calendar, and like I have to go into all the settings and toggle all the things.
All the things. And I definitely see all of those turn on, and I thought iCloud Photos was re-enabled, but certainly on one of my Macs in recent month or maybe 2, I noticed was not syncing my photos down anymore.
Yeah.
And so maybe it was this. It certainly seems from Dom's note like he found it that way. KiwiGram in the chat says that he too has the habit of checking both everything in system settings and the photos settings for iCloud Photos. But he says, I don't know that this is a 100% rule. So there must be, as you're saying, Adam, some criteria where this does or doesn't happen. But checking both is a good thing to do.
Yeah, I was going to say the takeaway is to check them.
Yes.
Even if you don't have to turn it on, check it.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Very fair point. Should I take this to Marty?
Well, I mean, no, not yet, if you don't mind indulging me.
Yeah,
well, there's like those things that we do on our Macs on a semi-regular basis now, right? That I feel like this now needs to be added, at least for me, to that list. And the list I'm talking about is going into system settings. I probably do this once a month, where I go into system settings, privacy and security, and especially like full disk access, accessibility, and screen sharing, or screen and system audio recording, or whatever it is. I go in there and make sure that all the things that I want on are on, because invariably some of them are off, and I don't know that they're off. And I will run into some problem down the road where it's like, oh, hey, this thing isn't working because this is off. Like, I'm looking in full disk access. Half the things in here are off on this computer, and I want all of them on. I trust. I'm running these apps. I want them to be able to open and save from anywhere without bothering me. So now I have to add this other thing, like go into Photos and make sure that it's on there. So I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I'm looking at this. This is shocking to me that all of these things are just off, and I want to turn them on right now, but I know it's going to break everything. So I have to. It's
later.
I got to sit on my hands for a minute. Yeah, exactly. Yes, please take us to Marty.
All right. So Marty has a quick tip. He says, with all the discussion about Sequoia's iPhone mirroring, I was surprised to learn that you can mirror your Apple Watch on your iPhone. It's an accessibility feature. Not sure there are a lot of use cases for this. Perhaps the posse can muse a little bit and come up with a use case. Cool feature, though. So you go into Apple Watch, settings, accessibility, and just flip on Apple Watch mirroring. Turn on Assistive Touch, enable Assistive Touch if it's not on already. Turn on Mirror My Apple Watch by scrolling down and enabling the Mirror My Apple Watch option. Huh. I tried this out and it totally works. I don't know what the 100% use case would be, but brought my iPhone or my Apple Watch right up on my iPhone screen.
Really? Like without, you're not running beta software. This is like in the current releases.
It's just part of accessibility. Yeah, it's been around. It's not a new feature.
Accessibility seems to be the way to do it. It's easier to touch your iPhone screen than your watch screen. It's particularly if you aren't running these cool Ultras that Dave and I have, and then which has that nice bigger screen. But I think the other thing is it demos somebody how to Here's how you do this. Here's how you do that.
Oh, wait, that's the use case. Let's say we were doing a podcast that had a video component, and we wanted to show somebody how to do things on our Apple Watch. There is no way to like show the Apple Watch on the screen of a Mac, but there is a way using QuickTime to show your iPhone screen or AirPlay, like Zoom has. You can AirPlay your phone to Zoom or whatever. And so you could mirror your watch on your phone and then mirror your phone on your Mac.
Your TV.
You're doing
your TV.
It
again.
Your TV.
Yeah,
your reception.
That's right. We're heading down the Inception path again. Yeah. That's right. But it's one way only. You're not able to control your watch. You're just able to see it, right, Adam?
No, you can fully control your watch from your iPhone screen.
Can? Oh, well, then I don't know.
You can completely interact with it. Just like the new iPhone mirroring in Sequoia. Yeah. So I guess Mac gets the iPhone mirroring, your iPhone gets your Apple Watch mirroring, and my Vision Pro gets my Mac mirroring. So I wonder if you could do all the way. Could we go all the way? Can I mirror my Apple Watch to my phone, and then my phone to my computer, and then my computer to my Vision Pro?
100%. Yes.
All these
Yes, so
mirrors
you
are going to fall down in the looking glass.
This begs another question. If you're on your Vision Pro, right, and you get a notification on your watch and you pull your watch up, does that, given that these are all Apple devices, I would expect, if not now, sometime later down the road, that when you lift up your Apple Watch, you will get in your Vision Pro an analog or a mirror of your Apple Watch on the screen.
And you should be able to touch it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess you can, if you're not in full opaque mode, you could see your Apple Watch through the Vision Pro.
It doesn't work that great. Same thing with your phone. I mean, it's not ideal, but you can see it. And you can also do screen recording on your phone if you wanted to create a demo for somebody.
Yes.
Then mirror your watch there and record it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, this is making
that was a rabbit hole we fell down.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, who's saving us?
It's me. It's my fault now. Mark, this is not going to save us, by the way. It is a quick tip. I don't know what the use case is for this, but it's cool to know. Mark M in Discord pointed out, he says, you want to tell the difference between an Intel MacBook versus an Apple Silicon MacBook. Well, if you can see the keyboard on an Apple Silicon, the function key has a globe on it, and the Intel Mac does not. And as Mark completes his thought, useless, but cool info. And I agree. It is cool.
Isn't there also the screen thing?
Wait, Adam, go.
Sorry, the screen thing. So Intel machines, I think, all still said MacBook at the underneath the screen, like on the screen. Whereas I believe M1's it's embossed on the bottom of the case.
Yeah, sure.
It's not on the bottom of my screen, but
it's not.
So I have an M2 MacBook Pro. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, so it's embossed on the bottom.
Oh, on the bottom of on the lower case underneath the keyboard.
Bottom of the if you open the screen, it's not on the screen.
And as I speculated pre-show, it just helps you to quickly identify whether or not you get to shame the person for not being up to date on a nice M1,
we don't shame Adam for not having an Apple Silicon computer when he's around, Pete.
Yeah, but why not? He's shaming us for not having the vision.
Yeah, well, there's that. Yeah, that's right. That's fair.
We're like cavemen. We have to walk around using our eyes and see the real world.
We respectfully shame each other. It's
there you go.
That's right. Yeah.
That's not for now because we're in quick tips, but that's a whole discussion we should have too. Because at some point, because I'm in a place, so it's worth having a conversation at some point.
Oh,
all right. Okay. We are doing the next 1046, if all goes according to plan, and I really hope it does, because otherwise I don't know when we're going to record 1046. But 1046, we plan to record live at MacStock on Friday the 12th. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. I don't know that we'll be able to live stream that recording, but we will record it. So maybe that's a conversation to have on stage at MacStock. That would be.
Are you going to bring your Vision Pro?
Oh, yeah. Barry's bringing his as well, so I think there's going to be a few people who have not tried them out, so we'll
bring
try to do some
Clorox
stuff with them.
So you can...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right.
Okay. I think I need to take us to Gary. He writes in, "Hi, MGG crew. Beware of the battery drain in the 1969 date issue is what it's about. I wrote a while ago about the December 31, 1969 issue affecting MacBook Pros issued by the company for which I work. Even with the latest Sonoma builds, it still keeps happening. This is caused by the MacBook's main battery running at 0% and the laptop shutting down. The problem is that when the employee attempts to gain access to the network using Cisco Secure VPN, the program will tell them that the computer does not meet Cisco's requirements for obvious reasons. However, changing the date and time requires admin credentials, since most of the organization's IT staff, including myself, have Windows computers using the basic Windows remote assistance tool. We can't help them. I have a fist shake at Apple. As much as you charge for your computers, bring back the PRAM CMOS battery. It works for Windows laptops. Okay, ran over. Keep up the great work, team. Gary. Gary, you're not wrong. That was... Although, what do you do when your CMOS battery goes dead, right? You know, it takes a few years.
Oh, they last a long time.
Yeah, they do last a long time.
I don't...
Just don't run your battery to zero.
That's the thing. Is there a way to teach users not to run their batteries to zero? The problem is that can happen while it's sleeping.
Yeah, it's probably not intentional, right?
If you leave it long enough, it can go to zero. So, yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Adam?
Well, this one confused me a little bit when he wrote in, because I had to think, like, how long are these people leaving their machines at zero? Because Apple actually plans for this scenario. So your battery never goes completely, like, zero is not zero, like zero.
It's just kidding.
Well, they leave enough for the exact scenario, and your machine can sit there. Like, I know personally, I've gone on a vacation, left my laptop, my Intel laptop at home, unplugged at zero, come back, and it's been at zero for at least a week, and I've never lost my time on my machine.
Interesting.
That I'm aware of. So I've never seen this personally happen to me, so I'm just curious if these are specific machines, or like, it was a little baffling to me, because that seems odd. But Kiwi Graham's saying you've seen it plenty of times with his clients. So they're more out in the field than I am. So I only have one data point.
One anecdotal case.
The one anecdotal case that I have is, and as we're talking about this, and we'll see here this weekend, quoting Kelly Gumat, the plural of anecdote is not data. But in my case is my son's M1 Pro MacBook Pro, or M1 something MacBook Pro, whatever it is. Once he got a gig as a full-time software engineer for a company that uses Linux or Windows, and they provided him with a computer, he stopped using his MacBook Pro every day. Like when he was in college and all that stuff, that was his primary machine. So he was using it constantly, both for work and, entertainment and whatever. But he now a few times has had a thing where like the clock won't set right, and it takes a few tries of like flipping the date thing on and off, or running the command line utility to sync up with the NTP server or whatever and get his clock going. And I think he's seeing this same thing, or some version of this same thing. He doesn't have to log into a VPN to get network access, so he's not blocked from running the NTP client. But even still, like, that's the thing. And is that what was happening in your scenario, Adam? Like when you turned it on, did it join the network and immediately sync up the clock?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking now. Yeah, right. I got false positive, right? So if I was locked out of any network but my VPN network by my company, which it sounds like this is the case.
Yep.
Yeah, then your machine wakes up. It cannot connect to a network because maybe it's forced to go straight to VPN.
Right.
And now you're locked out. That makes sense.
I think this happens more than any of us realize, because during the boot up process, the Mac OS runs the time sync daemon, the NTP, actually the time sync client, not the daemon. Maybe it is a daemon that runs as a client. I don't know. Whatever it is, doesn't matter. It syncs the time with a network time server. And my son's thing where it like half syncs is weird, and it takes a few tries, but he's seen it more than once on his machine. But he also had like a college VPN on there, so maybe there are some lingering remnants. I'm gonna this weekend I'll get with him and see if we can find something that would be getting in the way. But yeah, one piece of advice, I was dealing with my daughter, working with my daughter this morning, dealing with her makes it sound like this was a chore. She was not being difficult at all. But her computer was today. They were away for a few days traveling, and she had to do something which required her to, like, she needed to log into her bank or something. And so she needed to appear as though she was coming from the U.S. So she VPN'd into our VPN here at home on her Mac and did the thing, and then didn't turn it off, which was fine. Didn't seem to matter. She wasn't using her laptop a ton while she was traveling. It wasn't an issue. Their connection at home in Italy, as is the case for many people in their area, and I think throughout Europe, it's not uncommon, that their home Wi-Fi is 5G to Wi-Fi. There is no wired connection to their apartment. And that's pretty common, and it's fine. But like when I'm on a Zoom call with her, I will notice that she'll drop off for 3 seconds and come back. And I've had her check in the past. Her IP address has changed. It's, whatever's happening.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it happens, right? And it happens frequently enough that this is something that somebody who's going to head down that path might want to bear in mind, that you're not going to have this stable connection all the time like you would with wired. It will jump different towers, especially depending on where you live. Like she might be in between 2 towers perfectly. And so, she's jumping from one to the other or whatever, and it's fine. But the problem she was having all day today, her first day back, was that her computer would not stay online, and it would go offline for great periods of time, and super frustrating. And her phone, her fiance's phone, his laptop, everything else in the house was totally fine. So it wasn't a local internet issue. It was a specific to her computer issue. And I just happened to ask her, I'm like, did you use a VPN? And she's like, oh my gosh, yes. How did you know? But she didn't, she already knew where we were going with this.
Because I deal with Pete all the time.
Yeah, exactly. That's how. Right. Yeah, exactly. That might actually be true. And so, but anyway, these experiences, they inform us as we go forward. And that's why we share these on the show, so that it's in the backs of our heads, right?
Yeah.
And so this was in the back of my head, and she's like, oh my gosh, yes. And she went in and turned off her VPN, and she's like, and then we were on a call for like an hour. She's like, this is the longest I've been online all day. And there was a moment where she, dropped off and came back on, the 3-second drop or whatever that indicated that there was, a shift in the connection. But she came right back. She's like, oh yeah, no, the problem is solved. She's like, I'm certain of this. I'm like, well, you better knock on wood when you say that. You've only given it, 40 minutes of testing here. But like, the point I'm trying to share is, remember to turn off your VPN after you have been using it. I had an issue on my iPhone. I don't know, I took my dad to have some procedure at a hospital, right? And I waited for him, and I was there for 5 hours or whatever. Sat in the waiting room, put all my devices on a VPN because otherwise I couldn't check my email or something. And everything worked fine. And it was great. And then I got in the car, and I could not get directions home. My phone was not able to get online. And it wasn't until, and I had to do this while I was driving. And my dad helped me because he was there in the car, but he'd had a thing with his eyes, so he couldn't really. But I had to launch. I think it was ExpressVPN at the time. I had to launch that and turn it off, and then things kind of opened up. But that can really kind of get in the middle of your network stack, and then when you're changing connections rapidly, the VPN may not recover or may not join as gracefully or as quickly, and then you're left without connection. We were dead in the water, and I didn't know how to get home from this particular medical facility because I'd never been there before. I mean, I knew generally where I was, but not enough to be like, well, I guess we go that way, and it was frustrating. So beware. Turn your VPN off. Yeah. So I don't know. That's what I got. You got any more thoughts on that? Okay.
I got nothing.
Great. Adam, you were drinking water or something. That's why you were shaking your head, I think. Okay.
No, sorry. I was making noise back here, so I turned my mic off.
Got it. Okay, yeah.
Oh,
all right.
And Kiwi Graham just states that he said, I love this word, fully disinfect his Mac OS of PIA VPN because it screwed his network stack.
Yeah. I mean, it intentionally gets into your network stack.
Yeah.
Especially if you turn on the feature that is, I forget what the name of it is, but there's essentially a feature that protects you from that moment that you have between when your network comes alive and when your VPN can connect. And you can turn this feature on in many VPNs. PIA is one of them, but there's several others that do this too, where it blocks all network traffic.
You're talking the kill switch.
The kill switch. Thank you. Beware the kill switch. Yeah. And I wonder if, well, no, my daughter wouldn't have had that on because she's just connecting to our local VPN. So there's no VPN kill switch there. But I think that was my problem in the car, was probably the kill switch thing. And certainly it sounds like that was Kiwi Graham's issue. Yeah. Beware the VPN kill switch, or at least be aware of the VPN kill switch. So, yep. Great. All right. Yes. We good?
Good.
All right, great. Tony has our final quick tip, and he says his watch gets tapped accidentally while he's working out. And this was like causing issues. Sometimes it would stop a workout. Sometimes it would, do other things that were undesirable in the moment. And so what he sorted out was that if he turned on water lock, then those taps would not get registered during his workouts. So the quick tip is turn on water lock on your Apple Watch to keep those errant taps from disturbing your workouts. And Tony wrote a piece up about this on Medium that I linked to in the show notes, and I will make sure that link works for all of you. So yeah, thank you for that, Tony. It's a good little tip, right?
I have a similar problem, but I think the only solution for it is to do the whole flip my Apple Watch thing. And that it happened this weekend because I was working a lot in the yard and I wear gloves, and those gloves push the crown, and then my watch goes, it starts the alarm like I'm going to do the panic alarm thing, and the screen comes up, and I have to quickly cancel it because I'm worried it's going to call 911.
Ambulance keeps showing up.
Yeah.
Huh. It happened probably 3 or 4 times when I was working in the yard. And it's like, okay.
Wow.
Because I was going to say it'd be nice if we could temporarily disable that, but I don't think you want that because you want that safety feature. So I think that solution there is, do the whole upside down, flip the screen, crown backwards tip that we've covered before. Where the crown goes.
You mean putting the crown on the away from your hand as opposed to towards your hand, which is the proper orientation of the Apple Watch crown. I don't know. Like I like to have the crown scrollable with my thumb, and it turns out that my thumb would be on the inside of my. Oh, Pete.
Sorry for the video. I'm showing that it's scrollable with my thumb still on my hand side, but it's actually closer to my thumb.
I don't like it.
Here's the other solution for that. Sit on the couch until the urge to work out goes away. Then you don't have to worry about errant taps.
That is the answer. That's the best answer right there. But Adam, remind us all, because I don't know that I know what the use my Apple Watch to trigger an emergency is. Can you remind us of what that is?
I think it's when you press and hold the crown for a few seconds, like 2 or 3, 5 seconds. I don't know. It gets pushed in by the, because I wear leather
gloves. What's the other one? The action button. Because the crown is giving me the S lady.
You have an Ultra. You hold it down.
That's true.
I think, I'm pretty sure that's what triggers it.
I'm looking up the Apple support article on this.
I just know it happens.
Yeah, it says press and hold the side button, so it's not the crown. It's the side button it's under hitting. The crown. Yeah, it's not the action button either. Right.
Right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. I mislabeled what I was trying to say, but the one next to the crown is the one that
I just assumed it was the crown. That's amazing that the gloves can push that side button, which is,
Yeah.
So then it'd be probably the action button on the Ultra. Interesting. Well, flipping it around would solve that problem too.
Well, it would solve either problem. Right. Yeah. It says press and keep holding the side button until your Apple Watch issues a warning sound and starts a countdown. When the countdown ends, your Apple Watch calls emergency services. All right.
And I would, if you do take a fall and your watch says, "Hey, are you okay?" I wouldn't answer yes right away. Take a minute to recage your gyros. Make sure you are indeed okay. Because the story a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago now, my mother-in-law fell, and only because she couldn't figure out how to turn that off, it wound up calling 911. But she really tried. She was upset. She just wanted help to get up and go in the house. She had a broken shoulder, a concussion, all these things, and she couldn't get up. And she was trying to turn it off so it wouldn't call 911. It's like, no. So if you fall, let it call 911. You can always go, it turns out I'm good. Yeah. Better safe than sorry, I guess, is Pete's advice.
All right, folks. You ever feel like your text editing is stuck in the Stone Age? Well, don't get caught chiseling away at those stone tablets. Upgrade to our sponsor, BBEdit. You know me. I use BBEdit for lots of things. Show notes, programming, comparing documents, and even finding the meaning of life. Okay, well, maybe not the last one, because I'm kind of afraid of regular expressions, and maybe that's why. Maybe I'm afraid I'll find the meaning of life inside them. But you get the idea. BBEdit 15 is packed with a cornucopia of features designed to skyrocket your productivity. One of my favorites, the Minimap palette. It's like having a high-level drone view of your entire document, making navigation a breeze. And if you love Markdown and clippings, the expandable cheat sheets are a lifesaver. But wait, there's more. BBEdit's new ChatGPT worksheets let you interact with ChatGPT right within the app. It's like having your own AI assistant who's always ready to help, but without the attitude. And for you coding wizards, BBEdit's built-in support for the language server protocol offers enhanced text completions, interactive help, and code navigation. It's like having a magical spellbook for coders. Are you ready to level up your text game? Try BBEdit free for 30 days, fully functional. And if you're already a fan, there's discounted upgrade pricing available to you. Visit barebones.com to get started. Don't get caught in the text editing dark ages. Switch to BBEdit today. And our thanks to BBEdit and Barebones for sponsoring this episode. All right, let's do some questions. Scott has our first one here. I've been a long-time listener to this podcast, and Adam, I love, and Adams, and I love what you all do. Thanks for that, Scott. Yeah, we love what you do too. It's teamwork that makes the dream work here. It's awesome. Yeah. He says, I need to remote into my dad's Mac located in a different household. I need to enter passwords for him and give him general help when he has issues. We both have iMacs. I have the M1, and he has the version just before the M1 came out, so an Intel. Fine. I need this to be totally hands-off for my dad since he is struggling in his old age. I can go to his house and set up anything I need to in his settings if I need to grant me access ahead of time so that I can do this. Thanks for all you do. Keep on keeping on. Thanks, Scott. You want to take this, Adam?
Yeah, so it's a little bit tricky there because of the one requirement, because I think the easiest way to do this on a Mac is to use screen sharing and messages, right? So you can go into messages and you can say, I want to share my screen, or request someone share your screen, and then they have to like say, yes, do it. So you do need that interaction. And his dad would have to accept that control access. But I think that's absolutely the easiest way to get somebody who's not real technical to do a remote screen share. In this case, because he doesn't want any interaction, the next step would be to use something like Apple Remote Desktop on his machine. And that would allow him to go into settings, set that up, and remotely control the Mac. Apple actually has a really good guide for setting it up. And then there's even a more comprehensive user guide that covers like all of the features and setup and stuff like that. They're really, really good. So if you're getting into this, I would encourage you to read this, because there still might be some challenges depending upon the network stuff. So modern routers should handle the need for like opening ports on demand for this kind of feature. So hopefully you don't run into that problem with universal plug and play, and this technology has been around for a while. If you do run into issues, you might have to get into some networking stuff on the router or firewalls and look at ports and opening ports. I have a link to a list of all the ports that are used for Apple Remote Desktop. They're pretty much the same as for VNC, which you can also enable in Apple Remote Desktop. So if you want to use not Apple's client, but a different VNC client to connect, you can set that up. I say all this with the caveat that if you set this all up, you need to be very careful with all of this because you're opening access to these services, and essentially by opening those up, you are opening them up to everyone. It's not just you, right? These ports and connections, the machine's going to respond on these ports, right? So absolutely make sure you can tie the settings to a specific account on the Mac and make sure that account has a really secure password and is locked down and all that stuff. So that's great. In reality, after having said all that, the other thing I can think of is you may want to look into setting up a personal VPN. Bit outside of my expertise, but I know Dave and Pete have experience with that. So I know you guys use something like Tailscale, which I think can allow you to do some of this stuff. I don't know how technically difficult that is or challenging, but yeah, security becomes a problem, right? Anytime you start opening up services on your Mac that are allowing remote connections. So I'm always a little bit hesitant to be like, hey, just open everything up and it'll all be fine. But I think it's mostly okay as long as you know what you're doing.
Do you do this with anyone currently, Pete? I have some thoughts, and I have some potential answers.
I do. And again, I go back to my mother-in-law story. I use Apple screen sharing and her Apple ID.
Okay, so but she has to be there and grant you access.
She has to be there and grant access. Other than that, to reach my Mac Mini from around the world, which I use as a media server, I use Jump Desktop, which is as close to flawless as you can be. Now that's a paid product, and to do it free, I use Tailscale, screen sharing and Tailscale.
Yep.
And it's as idiot proof as it can possibly be. I'm the proof. I can get it done. So Tailscale and screen sharing to get to your own computer is practically flawless. It's just as simple as can be. But if you don't even want to work that hard, Jump Desktop is a paid product, and I found it to be fantastic.
Okay. Yeah.
So them's my answers.
Yep. No, that makes sense. Do you know approximately what the pricing is of
It wasn't much.
Desktop?
It was in like $15 or $20.
Okay. All right. Great. Okay. So
I think. Let me go back. Let me verify that.
Did you download it from the Mac App Store? Is that what you did? It's $15 on the Mac App Store.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. All right. So that's and Jump Desktop. Essentially, what he's asking here is, I want to get access to an unmanned computer that is awake.
Yep.
Like that's really what we're talking about here is no user interaction. So let's just pretend there's no user there. And then we can have this conversation. Like Log Me In used to be the answer for this. And you could do it up to like 3 or 4 computers for free. I don't think that's like still a thing, right? We haven't talked about it on the show for a long time, but maybe it still is. I don't know. Yeah, maybe. Oh, it's Go To My PC, right? Is what they rebranded that. But yeah, there's no free version of that anymore. Okay, got it. And so you're paying $33 a month or something, which is like more than you want to spend. Okay, so we got Jump Desktop. The other one is Screens from Adobe that you run a Screens Connect client on your on the Mac in like the unmanned Mac runs Screens Connect. And that then allows that does all the firewall traversal and all that stuff and then you're good to go, and then you use screens and get yourself in, and that would be the yet another path to do this too. So yeah.
Cool. And that's Edovia, Edovia.
Yes, thank you. Yep.
So, dumb question. I mean, again, don't a lot of these just use all the same underlying technologies? Like Apple's is still like the standard open ports for VNC and remote desktop and like all that stuff under the hood. Like, are any of these actually really doing anything different? And are they inherently more secure because you're running some other client, host software on the target machine and some other client?
I think where if you want to do it for free using Apple's tools only, the answer is, as you said, you have to poke those holes in your firewall, which then opens you up to the world. If you use Tailscale, that's also free, but it's not using only Apple's tools, but it's free for, the use case ish that we're talking about here.
And it pierces the holes automatically.
It doesn't poke holes. It creates that essentially a VPN where there are no holes for the public to even attempt to get in. If they can't log into your tailnet, then there's nothing to even brute force attack other than the username and password or the authentication for your tailnet. Most of us are using Google's OAuth for it anyway, so that then adds as many layers of security as you want to add to your Google account. So that would be the difference there, Adam, is yes. And something like Screens Connect is doing a similar thing via different methods where it's not just opening you up to the world, it's opening you up to people who can log into your Screens account. And so there's that layer of security. And with that, you get some version of security by obscurity. People don't know, and they can't just find by your IP address that this is something we should attack. You don't have that port for a VPN just wide open. So I think that's where these other solutions would be more secure. Now, with each of these, you're right. You're opening yourself up to a third party's access to your network. And so, do you trust the people at Jump Desktop or, go to My PC or Screens, or somebody else mentioned AnyDesk in the chat. I've not heard of AnyDesk before, or at least if I have, I've forgotten about it. But, go ahead.
I was going to say AnyDesk is the common one that the hackers will ask you to install on your machine.
Great.
And I think it requires a code. Yeah. It's great software. I'm not knocking it. They use it because it works really great for remote control. And you install it. I mean, you have to convince the person to install it first, right, on their machine, and then I know it pops up a code that you then give them, like, you need. Here's the code. Type in this code, and that'll allow me to connect. I'm pretty sure is the way it works. But no, I mean, it is good remote access software as well.
Got it.
It's not to knock it, but I watch a lot of scammer videos, and they use that and a few others. There's like common ones, but AnyDesk actually works with a lot of them to help thwart and stop these people as well. So,
all right, yeah, that's good to know. So, go ahead.
Sorry, one more thing on the Screens thing. So, yeah, I was only asking about the connectivity because I used to use the Screens client to connect to VNC. Like it was a VNC client, but I didn't know about the Connect piece of it that they have now. So I think that's newer.
Yes, that's it's an add-on, obviously, to the Screens client. But you're totally right. The Screens client is, to say just a VNC client sort of takes away from how excellent Screens is as a VNC client. But it is a VNC client. It just happens to be one that you can run on your phone and you can run on your iPad, and it works really well. And they've built it to sort of live within the limitations of the interface of the device in a very smooth way. And that it is the VNC client that I use primarily on my phone and iPad because of that. So, yeah. All right, that was good.
Yeah, good discussion. And before I take us to David, I will mention that, because I don't think we've said it, but VNC stands for Virtual Network Computing for the newbies out there.
No, I don't know that I could have told you what it stood for. I'm sure I've heard it before, but it didn't register. So thank you.
Yeah. So David writes in and he says, I really like Thunderbird, but I started using Apple Mail or using browser for email as it seems Thunderbird running in the background takes well over 600 megabytes of memory. Wow. I never even checked that. On a recent show, I heard one of you also like to use Thunderbird, so I was curious. Do you leave it running or close it after each time you use it? Note, I like leaving it running due to the alerts one gets for Apple Calendar and Mail. Dave.
Yes. So I think the way to approach this question is, should I leave my apps running all the time in general? Or which apps should I leave running all the time versus which apps should I quit on a regular basis? Specifically with Thunderbird, because yes, I use Thunderbird. It is my primary mail client these days, as you know, if you've listened long enough. So I leave it running all the time because I want it to check my mail. However, I do have it essentially relaunch itself once per day. And the reason for that is because, and this is more proactive. Thunderbird itself has not proven to be problematic, but Mail certainly proved to be problematic if I let it run for more than 2 or 3 days in a row. Safari, the same way. I have that. I use Marco Arment's Quitter, which is a free app. And man, it's awesome. You can set after X number of minutes of inactivity, not of the computer, but of the app. So if I haven't been in an app, if I set it to 10 minutes of inactivity, I could be using a different app on my computer and it will know that I haven't touched that app in 10 minutes and it'll quit it, which is an amazing way to manage things on the Mac. Like Marco should charge for this. He doesn't. And I'm thankful for him to, putting this out for all of us to use. But I love Quitter. And so that's what I use. I think I have Thunderbird, Safari, and Mail all set to 180 minutes maybe. And then that way it basically quits overnight. Although I don't think I have, I know I have Safari quitting with Quitter. I think with Thunderbird and Mail, I have their quit and relaunch as part of my begin the day script, which is a macro that I run in Keyboard Maestro that launches all my apps. The first thing it does is it quits Thunderbird if it's running. Then it goes and launches all my other apps. And then at the end of it, I have it wait until Thunderbird is no longer running and then relaunch it. And that way it's always running. And if I'm out, it doesn't get quit and then just stop running. But in general, the apps that I need to use, I leave them running. Safari, Messages, Thunderbird certainly is one of them. If I'm in Slack all day, yes, that too. All of those things are fine to run. Things like I use Safari as my primary browser, so I have Chrome and Edge and Firefox all set to quit after 30 minutes of inactivity, so that if I launch one of those and I do something in it and then I move on to something else, it just wipes it away. FileMaker, I have that set to quit after like an hour or whatever so that I don't forget. QuickBooks, I have set to 30 minutes because if I don't remember, it's great because it quits and backs up and does all its things. So Quitter is sort of a keystone of my memory management, if you will, on my Macs. But like Thunderbird on this Mac is taking up almost 2 gigs, as reported by Activity Monitor, of RAM. But I have 32 gigs of RAM on this computer. So I think it grows and shrinks based on what can be allocated. And Mac OS is so good at managing RAM these days that I don't think it's a big deal.
Yeah, I was going to jump in and say, like right now, I have 14 programs running, and that doesn't include all the crud up in my menu bar.
Right. Yeah.
It is so robust compared to where it used to be even 10 or 12 years ago that I just leave it running. I don't think I've ever heard of Quitter before, but I'll I'll be grabbing that.
I just find Safari and Mail certainly,
do better if they're relaunched. Right?
Do better if they're relaunched once a day. That's all. Yeah. Now I got to look and see, like, when am I relaunch? I know I'm relaunching Thunderbird. I think it might be part of my begin the day script. So.
Oh, okay.
But I can't remember now.
So I said I'd never heard of Quitter, and then it was Wass that mentioned he'd never heard of any. You had never heard of AnyDesk. He brought it up in there, and he goes, "Hi, Dave, you're the one I heard about it from." So
there you go.
You forgot about it.
Yep. Oh, I think I have a scheduled thing. Yes, I have a Keyboard Maestro scheduled script, macro, whatever, that happens at like 7 a.m. every day, and it quits and relaunches Thunderbird. That's where that happens. So, yeah, I knew there was something. I knew I did it somewhere, but yeah. All right. Anyway, you got anything on that, Adam? Thoughts?
No, I'm a quitter. That's all I had. I quit everything all the time, but that's just because that's how I am. That there's no rational reason for doing that, in my opinion. With the modern operating system, like, I have no problem with people leaving stuff open. The memory management, resource management on the Mac is good enough now that it'll do things in the background in very low power mode, and as long as you haven't tweaked all the settings and stuff like that. So I think most people don't have to worry about it. But I just like having everything shut down when I leave my computer for the day. So I quit everything at the end of the day and start everything back up in the morning. Yep.
Makes sense. Yep. All right. Shall we move on to Carsten's need for speed?
The big one, Carsten's need for speed. Yeah. I'm going to try and do my best to get into this one, but basically, Carsten says he needs an NVMe Gen 5 SSD drive installed in an enclosure in an enclosure that's also a 5 Gen because he wants to maximize the speed for video editing. He does video editing for his company. He uses DaVinci Resolve, has a ton of video content from his iPhone and from 360 video sources that's super large. So he's dealing with like terabytes of video, just lots of stuff. And he's looking for the ultimate solution that is going to give him speed when editing with his M2 Max Studio, which is fully loaded on disk size and memory. It's connected to a wired 10 gigabit network, and he uses Synology with 10 gigabit cards. So he's wondering, can he make it faster by moving to Thunderbolt at 40 gigabits instead of 10 gigabits on his network? And he is thinking about, again, getting a enclosure, USB-C and NVMe Thunderbolt enclosure, and directly connecting that when he's working. And then at the end, he can copy it to the Synology, I'm assuming, over the network when he's done. But basically, his source editing material is going to be on this NVMe drive, presumably connected to a USB Thunderbolt enclosure. But he's having trouble finding one that's a NVMe Gen 5, which I guess is the latest generation, and apparently has some speed improvements. At least that's what he says in this question. But then where I got lost with this a little bit was he says the enclosure that he's been looking at is a Satechi hub for the Mac Studio, which is like a little stand, and it has extra ports. And this is going to be good for him because it also has like an SD card slot, so he can transfer stuff from his SD card slot and all this stuff. And it has the NVMe slot in it, so you can install a SSD NVMe. But the problem is, and he's thinking about using the Crucial T700 4 terabyte. But the issue is that that hub is a Gen 4, not a Gen 5. So he was worried about the speed. But where I got lost on this was that hub is not Thunderbolt. It is USB-C. So the connection to the Mac is still going to be restricted to 10 gigabits because it's USB-C and not Thunderbolt. And so I don't know. Sometimes it gets a little bit confusing because Thunderbolt goes over a USB-C connector, but not all USB-C is Thunderbolt. So I don't know if that's coming into play here or not, or maybe I'm confused.
And also, not all USB-C is the same either, right? Like this
Right.
is a 10 gigabit USB-C port on this hub. You can have 40 gigabit USB-C with USB 4 now, right? Like it's just a connector. It's not the transmission speed. But this one, you're right, is limited to 10 gigs.
It's a 10 gigabit. Yeah.
It's a 10 gig device. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so getting to his question, what's the fastest thing I can get? And knowing that he's doing video editing, I immediately thought, well, you probably want Thunderbolt SSD enclosure, and more ideally something like a RAID. And OWC makes a great product called the ThunderBlade that is specifically for this. It's rugged, it's portable, it's small, it's designed for like hyper performance. And I would go with something like that. It's a lot more expensive than the solution that he's looking at.
Oh,
but
yes, it is.
but he said money is no object. He said he wants ultimate speed, money no object. So I think if that's really what you're going for, and it's for high-end, large video editing, this product's designed for that. So
Sure.
I would look at something like that. I don't know. I don't know if there's a bigger advantage with the NVMe 5. You'll get more performance, but that one, I forget what the speed on it they said was, but it's really fast. And then he kind of had a bonus question, which I went looking for this, and he said, I think he has an iPhone Pro that you can now, with the USB-C connection, I believe, record video right to an external drive.
Oh, yeah.
And he was like asking about that because he's got to set it up, and like he doesn't want a drive sort of dongling off of it and hanging off the camera when it's on a gimbal and messing things up. And so that made me think, I wonder if they make MagSafe SSDs now for iPhones. And I couldn't find that, but I did find an enclosure from HyperDrive that is a MagSafe SSD enclosure that you can basically clonk onto the back of your iPhone with MagSafe, which was pretty cool.
What?
Or you could do
love that.
DIY with MagSafe stickers, I guess was the other option, right? Because you can buy
sure.
MagSafe stickers
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
on
yeah.
Amazon for $12 and find a small like enclosure and even an NVMe one and pop that on the back of your phone, and then you kind of got it all in one. But that'd be the way I would go with the OWC thing. But again, maybe someone knows, maybe there is an NVMe Gen 5 enclosure out there that I didn't find one, but
Yeah, well, it's interesting because that you brought up Hyper, they seem to live in this world. I have one of their USB 4 NVMe SSD enclosures, and it's actually it's a cool little thing. It's got this rubberized case that sort of encloses the enclosure, if you will, and then the enclosure itself just pops open with your hand, and you can pop the NVMe in there, and it's got sort of little gradations in there, and you move a little like a little nub to hold the different sized SSDs in there. So for $120, you can get up to 40 gigabit speeds of NVMe, and so like that would be a thing. I'm looking to see. So this supports NVMe, PCIe Gen 4 and Gen 3. It does not support Gen 5. So I went and looked at what's the difference here. And I think the first thing we should address, and I'm dancing on the edge of telling you more than I know, is what NVMe is versus all the other acronyms that we use here, right? And so NVMe is a solution to the problem where SSDs are super fast, right? We know that. So fast that their limiting factor is the bus to which they are connected. And so, you have these computers with really fast buses in them, fast like motherboard buses. And then you've got these SSDs that are super fast. And this is part of, but not the only reason, that Apple does this whole unified memory thing where the SSD and the RAM are all together there because SSDs are super fast. And as long as you can get any other interface out of the way, it makes accessing the data on that SSD much more efficient than say if you had it connected to a SATA 3 connector, right? If you put you plug in a super fast SSD to a SATA 3 connector, that SATA 3 connector is the weak link in the chain, so to speak, right? It's the thing slowing you down. Enter NVMe, non-volatile memory express. And it's this standard to allow these SSDs to operate at the read-write speeds that their flash memory is actually capable of. And so that's where this obsession and or interest, depending on your level, comes in with NVMe. So that's what NVMe is. And, SATA 3 is like, 600 megabytes per second. So like, that's pretty, we have SSDs connected, like our Thunderbolt SSDs that we get from like OWC go to 2,800 megabytes per second. Well, that ain't no SATA 3 bus in there. That's just NVMe to Thunderbolt, right? And you're good to go. So it was a bus created for SSDs. Gen 3 NVMe goes as fast as 3,500 megabytes per second. Gen 4 goes 7,000 megabytes per second. So I don't think that's faster than a Thunderbolt interface. So you might want Gen 5 because it's one notch higher. I don't have the speed of Gen 5 right in front of me here. I know I can pull it up here. Let's see. PCIe Gen 4, depending on the number of lanes that you're using with it, can either go 2 gigabytes, so 2,000 megabytes, 4,000 or 8,000. So one lane is 2,000 megabytes. One lane of PCIe Gen 5 is 4,000 megabytes. So there's a world where you use a single lane PCIe 5 NVMe thing and you're maxing out your Thunderbolt speeds. But I think there's a less expensive way to get there. I don't think you need to go Gen 5. But I told you that I was telling you more than I know, or I was dancing close to the edge of that, and I've now sped past it. The edge of my knowledge is so far back I can't even see it in the rearview mirror. So feedback at MacGeekGab.com. If you know more about this, I know there's parts of this. The intro to this I definitely got right. The last little bit there, I'm not so sure. So let us know, please.
Wait. Where? Feedback at MacGeekGab.com?
I believe he said feedback at MacGeekGab.com.
It's our only hope. That's right. Yeah. So.
Wow. That was questions answered, cool stuff found, quick tips all in one, brother.
Yeah, that is correct.
Nicely done.
That is correct. Yeah. Now I need like a break and a, what's that?
Yeah. Well, and I'm supposed to read the next one, but I'm sitting here just enthralled with what you were saying that I didn't have it up and ready, but I do now.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Let's jump there. Yeah, sure.
So, those are cool. I'm going to go back and listen to that and look at that over and over again because there's stuff I want to get. Although
I need to learn from myself on that one too. Yeah.
But the ThunderBlade, whoa, cool, but ouch. Anyway, all right.
For people who need that is
right.
a correct
Fair enough.
answer.
And he said, "Money is no object. I need the equipment. It's obviously it's what he does. He needs something to accomplish the task." Yep. And I just go back to 35 years ago. I got my first Windows computer, and it had a 40 megabyte spindle hard drive.
Yeah, I know. And I had that same 40 meg drive, and I thought, man, I will never need more than
Never
this.
fill that pig up. Yeah. And now you're writing 600 megabytes per second when you're slow, when you're really slowed down.
With the slow one.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right. Yeah, per second.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Terry writes in, he says, I have a 2017 iMac that's starting to show some age. I'm looking at a Mac Mini to replace it, and I'm thinking of using the Luna display to repurpose the iMac as a monitor. What is your feeling about Apple's base 8 gig unified RAM? An M2 Mini with base 8 gig RAM or a jump to the 16 gigs? The Mini would be used for photo editing. So how good is unified RAM? Is Apple still shortchanging us on RAM, or is the 8 gig unified equal to the old 16 gigs? Signed, Terry. And that nicely dovetails from the last question.
It does.
Actually, I think.
Yeah, I didn't quite realize how well these two paired together. So we know what unified memory is. We know that it's efficient. We've already established that. Terry, I know that we are the right people to ask questions exactly like this. I am also exactly the wrong person to ask because I can't bring myself to order any Mac with the base 8 gigs of RAM. However, I know many people that have and do things like, moderate photo editing, and it's fine. So I think for some purposes and some people, and it might even be the majority currently, 8 gigs is enough. However, I like to run my Macs for long periods of time. RAM can no longer be upgraded on Macs. We know that. And so I always order with at least my M series Macs, my Apple Silicon Macs. I've always ordered with at least 16 gigs. And if I was ordering one today, that would be my floor, would be 16 gigs of RAM. The one here in the studio, it's a Mac Studio, so it's got 32 because that's this is the minimum configuration you could ever have gotten with a Mac Studio. My M2 Air that I had to buy last summer because of the lightning storms, that came with 24, and so obviously it's fine, like great, 24 gigs. But like in my office, which is the machine that I use most, is my currently least powerful Mac. It is an OG M1 Mini from 2020 with 16 gigs of RAM, and I don't notice any RAM starvation style issues. So that's my answer, and I know it's a non-answer. What do you think, Adam? Like, would you buy an 8 gig Mac?
I totally would. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there you go.
In a heartbeat. I have a 8 gig M1 for work, and I've had that for a few years now. I think it's a 14-inch. And it's great. I've never had any issues with it. My wife has an M1 Air with 8 gigs. It really comes down to many of those things that you're talking about, right? Like, what are your use cases? Like, he says photo editing. How heavy photo editing? Are we talking about like pro level? Like, if you're a professional photographer and that's your bread and butter and it's your money and how you make a living and it's really important to you and you're dealing with massive files and doing a lot with Photoshop or something like that, yeah, then get the extra RAM. Like, I would go for it. But like, if you're just a hobbyist and you're editing photos and, here and there and doing some light work and stuff like that, I think 8 gigs is going to be totally fine. I'd almost rather at this point spend the extra money on additional storage because I don't like having to attach a bunch of external things if I don't have to. So, it's a little give and take, but like, I've never noticed memory issues on my work computer, and I'm doing, web development and programming and not real heavy stuff though. So, if I had higher needs, if I was doing video editing, those sorts of things, I probably would go with more RAM, definitely for future proofing. So if you're the type of person like, I'm going to have this machine, and it sounds like maybe he's got a 2017. That's the other thing though. Part of that question was, is 8 the new 16? And in his world, coming from a 2017 iMac, the answer to that question is yes, it absolutely is. It's going to be 16 gigs from 2017 is going to be, the 8 gigs now is going to be better than that, the unified memory. Like, it's going to be actually better than the 16 from 2017. Yes. But, again, that said, I'd go up if you have higher needs, or again, if you're looking for future proofing, more is always better and it'll have better resale value. So.
I really wonder though, if for most of us, me included, and I'm playing devil's advocate against myself here, I wonder if 8 is enough. Like, is that with what you're doing, my guess is you're just getting your work done. You're not obsessing about how your computer is managing RAM. So you probably don't know the answer to the question that sits in my mind, which is, okay, this is great news to hear, like that for years, you, a power user, at some level for sure, has survived with 8 without even thinking about it. The question is, how often are you, paging into swap, right? How often are you using the unified memory of the SSD sitting right next to that 8 gigs of RAM? And remember, the SSD is also kind of RAM-ish. How often is that happening? And you don't even notice nor care. And then your thought about, well, wait, if you have a limited budget, which most of us do, it's how life works, then spending more on the storage, especially for a laptop, might be a really smart move. I got to rethink my whole world here.
Yeah, that's where I would put my money, only because that's going to run out on me before, because, I don't throw things away, and, I don't want to deal with moving stuff around if I don't have to. I mean, I do, but, I'd rather have that be more. And I think I even did that with my daughter needed a new laptop, and I got her an M2, M2 Air? Do we have M3 Airs now?
We do.
It might have been she needed it, but right before, obviously.
Sure.
So I think I got her an M2 Air, and I went with more storage for her rather than I just kept the base RAM the same. And I think I went with the 512, like right mid tier for her, because that's plenty of storage. But myself, I'd go a terabyte or maybe more on the storage and probably stick with the 8. I'm even looking at, like, as I was mentioning earlier, we need to get into this conversation because my Intel one is getting long in the tooth. I kind of don't want to spend the money. I was trying to look at Pro versus Air now,
Yeah.
And I think I'm still going to land on Pro more just because the new Pro is actually thinner than the Air and lighter than the Air. So
it is, yeah.
But rather than like maxing out a Air and going with kind of a middle or lower tier Pro, like saving some money, and they start to get pretty close to each other if you, depending on how you're configuring and stuff like that. So, but we won't go into that diatribe because that'll be a longer conversation.
That'll be longer. Yeah. Okay.
But remember, the advice used to be get as much RAM as you can afford, and you can always upgrade your hard drive later, which is no longer the case. So, and I think, so I think spending the money on the storage seems to be the answer. I just looked while you guys were chatting. My M1 Mini also is the 8 gig version that I bought about a year and a half ago now. And it runs Plex, it runs channels, all that stuff. And, so that's video intensive. I mean, it isn't processing video, but it is.
Right,
and
right.
I've never noticed any hiccups.
Are you running
from it.
iStat menus on? You don't have you guys don't have. You're not on either of those machines. I'm just curious, like what it says for swap memory usage up there. Just because I'm curious. Not that it has made. If it's using it, it clearly hasn't made any performance difference for you. I'm just curious where that falls. Yeah.
Yeah. The thing that you said earlier is the exact right thing, which is I don't know, but more importantly, I haven't cared. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me if it was using swap or not. Like I wouldn't know the difference in day-to-day use. Like, I mean, I don't see beach balls. I don't see things slowing down. I don't like.
If you had seen beach balls, you would know how much swap it was using because you would have troubleshot your beach balls.
Correct. Yeah, and that just doesn't happen anymore. It happens on my Intel machine, but that's a whole different story.
Yeah, right. No, that right.
And I've got 16 on this one.
When Apple Silicon came out, I remember saying, like in general, and I'm sure we said it here on this show, that this is a different paradigm. We have to sort of let go of our institutional knowledge of this because it's currently wrong. And me holding on to those 16 gigs as a minimum, it sounds like it's simply wrong. Like it's part of that thing. And I'm aware of this. Like this isn't something that's shocking to me that 8 works. It's just, I never took the leap of faith. So, yeah.
But if you care, you care, and you should spend the money. Like that's just what it comes down to. Like you have to know yourself and you have to know your use. It's the same conversation. It's still the same conversation I've always had with people is like, You have to sit down and decide what's really important to you. And it doesn't matter the reasons why they're important to you. Like, it could just be like, I want more, or I think more is better. It's like, if that makes you happy, then get that and go with that. You know, and
more feels
you can
safer
change
to
too.
me.
Yeah.
It's the insurance policy of more RAM rather than the practical reality of needing it. And who knows, will Apple Intelligence require more RAM? And also, will it matter if that winds up using more swap space? Like, my guess is no. Who knows? Who knows? We will. Well, you don't know about Apple Intelligence yet, but you know about everything else because you do more with that computer than most people do with their computers, and you're fine with 8 gigs. And Pete, your Mac Mini that's running as a server. Servers are a little different.
Yeah.
The thing that is offensive to RAM is the launching and quitting of many, or launching and not quitting, as we talked about earlier, of many different apps. Servers, you can kind of get up and running, and then you sort of leave them alone. You're not launching and quitting apps all the time. They're just staying.
Right.
So,
but I wasn't, but I did just install iStat menus from SetApp on my Mini while we were chatting there. So we'll see how, I'll check that out occasionally and see how it's going. But,
just look in the memory dropdown. Like it doesn't need to collect the data. It's real time. Can you see if you have a memory dropdown installed yet? And you might not. Is there a swap memory entry?
I might. Since I just installed it, not likely. But let's see what memory dropdown.
Oh no! You know what? You can see this in Activity Monitor too. Just launch it. Launch Activity Monitor.
I'm already looking at the memory dropdown in iStat menus because it's that fast. But don't see wired, active, compressed. It's
look farther down.
The most I'm using is 2.3 gigs.
There should be one that says swap memory.
Swap memory.
Processes.
242 of 1 gigabyte. Megabytes of 1 gigabyte.
Okay, so you're using a quarter of a gigabyte of swap on that machine. Okay, there you go. That's the answer. So,
but have never once noticed.
Yeah, you don't have an issue with
a hiccup.
Here's the one case you might make is if you get more and you're doing less swap, we know there's a longevity with SSDs in terms of read writes. So, but again, I would argue with modern SSDs, most people are never going to hit the end of life of their SSD before they have to replace their Mac.
Yeah, right. Well, I don't know. 10 years. Like, is the SSD going to last 10 years? Because Macs tend to last 10 years now, like in terms of their processing usefulness, but maybe. Sure. Yeah. So that would be the one thing where yes, that's a great point. Love that. Yep.
More wear and tear. I mean, if you're doing more swap, you're obviously doing more wear and tear on your SSD.
Totally.
To be fair.
Totally. Yes. Yeah. But more storage means more of those overflow sectors on the SSD that we talked about recently, and maybe it all kind of comes out in the wash. I don't know. These are the things that require us to do another episode. Plus, I want to ask you about, I want to find out about your computing decisions.
Synology.
And I want to ask about your Synology, but we are long past the time where we must say goodbye for today. So we're going to say goodbye for today. But the good news, we have material in the can for the next episode. And between now and then, we know that all of you are going to send those things into feedback@macgeekgab.com and give us even more material. And that's awesome because here's the thing. We have feedback@macgeekgab.com. We didn't talk about premium here this episode specifically, but we also have premium at macgeekgab.com. We do answer the stuff that comes into premium first. We tend to prioritize that, and that's how that works. However, we also endeavor to answer everything that comes into feedback at macgeekgab.com every week. Sometimes we miss that mark, but we usually get caught up eventually too. So it's rare that something just lingers out there forever and never gets answered. Might not get addressed in the show because we pick things for the show that we think are going to be good for the show. The questions that come in, the secret is, it's not so much of a secret, that we do try to answer everything that you folks send us. And so please, keep them coming. It's great. And you will almost certainly get an answer from us within about a week. Give yourself about a week. If you need or want answers potentially faster, join our Discord at macgeekgab.com/Discord, because not only are we there answering things and contributing and participating, there is so much activity from so many of great people, really smart people smarter than us in our community here, that the hive mind, that is where the Mac Geek Gab hive mind exists, is in real time anyway, is the Discord. So
and there's some smart folks in there too.
Oh, it's amazing. And the conversations, it is like the best of social media, because I've never seen people people disagree about things all the time. I mean, of course, I need 16 gigs. I need 8. And then we have a productive conversation about it. Those productive conversations are what happen in Discord too. And so you really get that nitty gritty of why someone thinks a certain way. And everybody's really open to other opinions.
There have been no flame wars in there.
Not a one. If there have been one, it's probably me that started it or something. But but that's my fault.
I have to ban you, Dave.
I you know what? Ban me if I break the rules.
Ban yourself.
I guess we do have rules there, but we've never had to enforce them, other than the very occasional drive-by spammer that joins the community or something. That happens, but even that's super rare. Knock on.
Yeah. So in the Discord, there's the channel to go to is MGG Help Desk if you need something right away.
That's it. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Thanks for hanging out, folks. Thanks to barebones.com and BBEdit for being our sponsor. We look forward to seeing you at MacStock. I think that coupon is still good, at least as of the day this episode releases, which is Mac Geek Gab. That saves you $30 on your admission. It also gets us $30, which is a nice little perk, but really it saves you, and that's the key. So we'll see you there, we hope. If not, we'll release the episode that we record there one way or another. And any last minute advice or thoughts or anything from you, Adam, before we head off?
Don't get caught.
That'll work.
Nice.
Later. All right, we're out. Sweet.